we think we're going to be able to get in the next, by 2032 is the goal. We've already started piloting it. We have the first plant will be Williamsburg, will come online full scale. We think we'll be able to get about 110 million gallons a day back into the ground. But we still know there's about 130, potentially 130, 150 potentially could come out of the ground. So we're making it better, but fully not replenishing everything that's being pulled from the aquifer. This is the real picture. We use DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, Virginia Department of Environmental Quality's model. So we don't want anybody to accuse us of using a biased model. So we use the regulator's model to show on the left. See those two dark red? That's the groundwater table. That's the cone of depression that comes from 2 paper mills. If you know that there's 2 paper mills in our area, then that's it. You can see that groundwater aquifer draw, because in the heyday they may have done 15 to 16 million gallons a day pulled from the groundwater aquifer.
So that geography is very meaningful for me. So your top red dot on your left figure, the top one, is where my kids went to high school. It's the closest high school to us in Gloucester. It's West Point High School, where there's
Sure is.
open paper went. And I grew up in Windsor, which is near the
Franklin.
bottom right.
Yes.
So I am lucky if nobody I know doesn't, if no one I know suffers groundwater salination, because that is so risky when you lower that water table. If salt water starts coming in, we don't have a way to fix that.
You can't undo it. That's exactly right.
So do you think that injecting it in those 2 points might help prevent that? Is that what the models are predicting? They'll help prevent the salt water from getting into our groundwater supply?
So what we're going to do, absolutely, yeah, we'll form a barrier to prevent this saltwater intrusion. But we're going to inject it at the locations of our treatment facilities, the ones that are deemed worthy of this advanced treatment. And this is the 50-year run model, the blue dot. See how it disappeared? We basically have corrected an issue. This is the one on the right, is the 50-year run of us injecting, pumping the water into the aquifer.
The red disappeared.
The red disappears.
That's good.
Now there's other things you want to do, like people aren't using as much paper mills are not using as much water, they're finding that, so we're all working together, but this is just the model run of us pumping the water, and look how we have significantly improved the cone of depression. Now, just so you know, we don't cause earthquakes, it's not fracking, you're not pumping it down, it's not near the pressures of that. You're also not raising people's houses off the foundations. Like I said, we're actually still going to be putting in a little less than it's coming out. It's all pressure monitored, and the pumps it doesn't push so hard.
What's the distance between your injection point and your withdrawal point?
So
Commonly.
this is where it's crazy, right? So it's all, so yeah, we're putting it down about 1,500 feet. Well, it goes in at different levels, but that's the deepest part of the Potomac aquifer. And this is where it gets crazy. It takes, they estimate about 150 years to go not even a mile.
Yeah.
But it's doing this work because it's pressurized. It's like it's putting the pressure that raises the aquifer from the pressures here. As this pressure goes out, we have an aquifer being raised all the way out. So the distance that it travels is hardly anything. That's why it's a pretty easy sell, because a lot of people are like, oh, 150 years, I'll be dead, I don't care. But we're obviously cleaning it to where we're not causing degradation of the
Is that southern one done though? Is that Windsor plant closed now?
It's not closed. They repurposed it. They still do some water usage for other purposes. I think they do food paper now, like wrappers and stuff, but not near the paper waste that and the water usage that they had back in the day when people were cranking out paper. You know.
I think you could smell it even here some days when the wind was right.
And it smelled. It was rough. I just want to quickly mention this. This is called the nitrogen cycle. You guys have studied this. This is where
Technologists should have.
I did my graduate work here on stuff dealing with the nitrogen cycle, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But just know that what you do in school actually does translate to the real world. I mean, I know it's like when you learn the nitrogen cycle, you almost think sometimes it's theory, you know, like, oh, that's interesting theory, and now I'll go get a job and they'll never talk about this again. Not hardly. See the ammonia that comes in, like ammonia, you know, pee, urine, that's the big factor here. You know, we're talking about a form of nitrogen coming in wastewater that we have to deal with. We don't want the nitrogen going out into the river, so that ammonia is oxidized to nitrite, to nitrate. A process called nitrification, which uses aeration tanks at our treatment plant. This is what I did my whole thesis work on here at CNU was, does a campground waste inhibit this process of nitrification? And the answer is sometimes yes. And then on the bottom, denitrification, this is the part where this nitrogen nitrate is reduced to nitrogen gas. So we basically took a form of nitrogen that would cause this eutrophication, these algal blooms, and now we have put it to nitrogen gas in the air, which is not a problem because why? Why is it not a problem with nitrogen gas in the air? You can say it louder, wasn't it?
Is that fixated by plants later on? So
Yeah, there will be, but just in general, is nitrogen gas in our atmosphere now? Yeah, it's like the majority of the gas. So there you go. We're doing something, and there is a small greenhouse gas that is emitted through this denitrification process. It's not all positive, but for the most part, far more positive than putting the nitrogen into the river. We control this nitrogen. We have permits, so we're limited on how much we can put into the river. We have a bubble permit for the 7 plants on the James River. This is some of the work I do. Ammonia oxidation rate test. That sounds really scientific. It's just that first step of the nitrogen cycle, ammonia oxidation to nitrite, and I'm just testing a rate and comparing that with industrial contributions to the wastewater plant to make sure they don't inhibit the bacteria that nitrify. So science, and you get paid to do it. These are automated sequencing batch reactors, SBRs, little mini treatment plants that I get to run, and we do a lot of experiments. We basically run the nitrogen cycle, remove nitrogen, we introduce different carbon sources, we introduce different things that could potentially inhibit these nitrifiers. So there's lots of interesting things to do. But now I'm going to get to stuff you all really care about. Competition, getting into the job market. How do you get a job? I mean, what are some things dealing with getting jobs? I want you to really pay attention, ask me questions. Don't be afraid, because I'm going to be blunt about how you get a job and things we're looking for, and then you same and ask the question well, what about this? I started, I know I don't look young, right? But I'm pretty old because I started in 1997. And back then, there were 5 applicants that applied when I went full-time at HRSD. 5 applicants. They were just happy somebody applied. 2 high school, 2 had associates in science, and then there was me, who was almost completing a bachelor's of science. So I was way at the top of the competition. I was amazing. I mean, can you imagine the only person with almost a bachelor's degree applying for a full-time job at HRSD? But back then, I was pretty good, and I got the job. Okay, so then we go to 2010. I'm so glad I can give you all this presentation in 2019, because the few years after 2010, in 2010 it was tough, because it was the roughest market. That's an example. We had 85 applicants for an entry-level job. 10 got interviews. Look at the qualifications. 5 with experienced bachelor's degrees, 4 with master's degrees and experience, and 1 PhD with experience who got the job for entry level. And that's where we were in 2010, and that's why this talk was so difficult the years after that. And I think I started just a few years after that, talking every year saying, it's going to get better. And it has, so now the good news. 2018, I got one of entry level from last year. We had about 19 applicants, 10 got interviews, and look at these. 6 bachelors with no experience, 2 masters with no experience, and 2 bachelors with some experience. We hired both of the bachelors with some experience. So you're starting to pick up, now, experience is important, some kind of experience. So there we are. The good news is, look how much better that job market is, way better. A lot of that has to do with the economy is getting stronger, and a lot of the baby boomers generation has reached a retirement age. In fact, in our company, we did an incentive and encouraged 50 retirees to go. I mean, they basically, here's a huge check. Now clear the way for us to hire, because it was getting bogged down, And I understand that it's you have to create movement, and it worked out for them. But 50 in a company of just at 800, that's a pretty big chunk of people going all at once. I mean, talking about senior management for the most part. It was strongly encouraged, and this is happening all over the country. So with that, it creates this trickle down that they leave, then this person goes up, and this person goes up, and next thing you know, entry-level jobs open up. On top of a better economy, things are looking better. So you still have to do what it takes to get a job. You have to get your education. I will say the paper is important, but it's just a starting point. I say it's important because a lot of times you get screened out. If you don't have a degree, you don't get an interview. So like they have to start somewhere, and like in my line of work, let's say it requires a bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're screened out before you ever even get a shot to tell what you can do. So finish your degree, get the education. It's very important. Not only is it important because you need the piece of paper, but you're going to be able to excel in areas because of your education. But it's just a starting point. That's the part I wanted to emphasize. You can't just walk up and be like, guess what? Boom, got the paper. Who's going to hire me? It's not that easy. You still have a few more steps. So it's not as glamorous as this is. You have to start at the bottom. Now, I had one intern. She quit. She was a communications person, so the communications major back there, just know she told me after 2 weeks, I was going to hire her to like talk to people about wastewater, but you still had to like get your hands there. And she was like, I don't think I'm going to do this. It's very dirty, and my goal is to work for Anderson Cooper on CNN. I'm like, well, set your goals high, but I would probably start at the bottom. You know, like you do have to start at the bottom. You have to pay your dues. You have to volunteer. You know, volunteering is like internships, but a lot of internships pay. Like we pay like $13 an hour. So if you volunteer and say, I'll do anything, then they'll say, okay, you know, come on, and you get paid for most of them. But the point I want to make is if you don't get paid, you still need to volunteer. You have to get something that says I have experience. It's not going to be your dream job, and the pay is not going to be the best. Believe it or not, $13 an hour is pretty good when you're starting out, but eventually you'll need to make more than that to, you know, have a mortgage and kids and all that stuff. Opportunity to demonstrate maturity and competency. This is your big. This is a chance you show them what you can do. You must be confident. You can't just be like a nice person that doesn't know anything. But you need to be a person that knows something and a good person. Somebody that has a good work ethic, that is clearly mature and able to handle the job. And this is your chance. And when you get out and work, when you're showing people, you're a great hire. At that point, if you've shown them that you can work well and that you have a good attitude and you're mature, well, they can say, well, I could go through this whole hiring process, or we can just hire her or him because we have a job and they always show they can work well, so let's do it. And that's how most of our interns are placed right into full-time employment. All right, getting started. Coffee, that's actually how I got the job at HRSD. A girl at Old Dominion sat in front of me, and she worked at HRSD, and I didn't really know what HRSD Sanitation District, I wasn't sure if it did like trash pickup or what, but I knew it was like environmental work of some kind, so I was like, can I just come make your coffee every day? Like, I'll do anything, whatever it takes to get a job. And I didn't really have to make her coffee. But just that willingness, she was like, why don't you come tomorrow? I think we have a spot where we can intern you doing toxicity testing, where I counted sheep's head minnow in this experiment, this toxicity experiment. And then the middle picture, first guy I worked with, Mark, he's still there. Now we're peers. Then he was my boss. And he made me put that jar, yeah, that's like poo water in a jar, right? So imagine putting your poo water in a jar, and I had to shake it up and then get like sulfide and methane readings off of it. It's like my job was shaking poo in a jar. Now, I mean, not exactly what maybe all of you dreamed of, but starting at the bottom. I also had to pull an anchor. I put that up there to show you, like my first 2 weeks, we go out on the boat, I'm like, this is great. I'm this young like college kid ready to go out on the boat. Like the first 30 minutes, we're taking water samples. It seems pretty scientific and cool. And then the electric winch goes out on that drops the anchor. And they're like, hey, 20-something, that was me at the time. Go sit on the bow of the boat, and I just pulled the anchor up, and we get to the next side, and I lower it down. And then I pull it back up, and that was like my job for the day. It's like terrible. Like, it just worked me to death.